Don't just remember formulas but actually understand why they exist. Today, we will discuss this. About me, I'm Prateek and I got 97% in my 10th board exams without any coaching, tuition, or reference books. Right? And I'll tell you how to do the same, how to become from an average student to the top of your entire grade. Let's start the video. First, related to this, let me tell you a story. So, the story is of a normal maths class. We had a maths class and we are doing a chapter named Permutation and Combinations, right? Pretty simple chapter. Now, there was a formula type of thing in that, which was that if you are finding permutation or combination or something, and there is some letter or some object that is being repeated over, then you have to take the number of objects being repeated and divide the factorial by the total outcomes or the total permutation or combinations, right? That was the thing. Now, I asked the teacher, why is it so? Like, why do we have to divide it? What is the reason behind it? She said, well, it's just the formula. I was like, oh, it's just the formula, so what? Like, okay, it's a formula, but someone must have found it, right? So, how did they even find it? And she was like, that's not for you to worry about, just remember the formulas and apply it wherever you can. Alright, let's go to another story. Now, this was a chemistry class, and in chemistry, we were talking about quantum chemistry and all, and in that, there was Bohr's radius. Bohr's radius and angular momentum formula was given as nh by 2 pi, where n was an integer, right? Now, I asked the teacher, why do we have nh by 2 pi? She said again, that's not for you to worry about, the derivation is for the higher level. I was like, but still, there must be some reason. Why do we have pi here? Why do we have pi multiplied by 2? Why is h here? Like Planck's constant. Why is it here? She just said again, that's not for you to worry about. Just think about it later on. And this is a thing which I do not like at all. In both the instances, I thought the same thing. If you do not know how the formula came, how will you even calculate it? Like, how will you even put it the values if you do not even know what values are, how were they even found? Let's say in the permutation formula, you know the formula, you have learned the formula, and you can solve it for some simple cases. Let's say you have a given word and you know the number of letters being repeated and how many times, then you just divide, done. But let's say we have a completely different word problem type of thing, and in that you have to apply the formula. You know, the difference is if someone knows how the formula was derived, he can easily apply the formula because he know exactly from where we started and to where we went, right? But someone who just remembered the formula do not even know what the formula even is for. He just knows that this is the formula. Why, where it came from, how it came, he doesn't know. So he will not be able to do the thing, while the person who actually understood the formula will be able to do it. This is such an important thing that people just glance over it and just start doing things which do not even make sense. For example, in a book for trigonometry, there were literally 20 to 30 identities like tan 2x, tan 3x, and so on, and each had a given expression which was equal to that. Now, what people were doing in my class they were just learning the formula. Now, I thought that there must be no way to find the values, but they just found it somehow using approximation or something. Then I actually started learning the chapter. I started studying the chapter, and I realized that if you know some basic facts like the identity cos x plus y, if you know just that one identity, then you can basically calculate all of the things and all of the identities and other things that are in trigonometry for basic level. Of course you can, because everything is derived from that one identity. Or if you replace it with sin x plus y, nothing changes because these two are interderivable, right? The point is again that if you know one thing, you can calculate other, then with the other thing, you can calculate other. Let's say you know cos x plus y. By that you can calculate sin x plus y. And if you know that, then you can calculate tan x plus y. That's the point. Now, if you have just learned the identities, first of all, it would be very difficult for you to actually learn them. Because of course, you cannot learn 20 or 30 identities with repeated things which are being repeated like cos x, sin x, tan x. All these things will be repeated again and again. Cos x plus y is cos x cos y minus sin x sin y. Sin x plus y is cos x sin y minus plus sin x cos y, right? So of course, these things, cos x, cos y, sin x and all, these are being repeated over and over. So of course, it is very difficult for a person to not be confused with them unless they rigorously learn it by basically staring at the book for 5 hours straight. And how much time it takes to prove the identity? Maybe 5 minutes. If you know cos x plus y, you can calculate sin x plus y, then you can calculate tan x plus y, then you can calculate tan 2x, then you can calculate tan 3x, then you can calculate cot 2x, cot 3x, and so much more. That's the point, right? If someone knows how to derive the identity, he can create 1,000 things. But if a person has remembered an identity or any formula, then that person will be limited to that one thing. You know, remembering formulas, it is much like remembering maths or basically learning questions in maths. You know, in earlier classes, what many people used to do was that we had math books, right? Now, from those math books, they would take questions from examples and exercises and all. They would learn the questions, and they would learn the answers for them, like how the answer is exactly done. They wouldn't learn how the answer was calculated, but rather what the answer was. For example, the question is find x if x plus 2 is equal to 3 or something like that. Like, let's take an simple example. Now, rather than understanding how, they would actually learn it. X plus 2 is equal to 3. Then 2, and they wouldn't, instead of thinking that 2 goes here, then we have x is equal to 1 and things, they actually learned. Then in the next statement, we have x written this side and 3 minus 2 written this side, without actually understanding why. Then of course they would get the correct answer because they are basically following a particular algorithm which they have learned without without understanding why. But later on, let's say they have a question, x plus 2x is equal to 5. What can you do at that point? Of course, they would apply the same thing, x is equal to 5 minus 2x, x is equal to 3, done, or something like that, which is of course wrong. So basically, the point that I'm trying to make is that if you have a particular expression and you learn it, then you will not be able to calculate other things which are related to it or other things which are derived from it. But if you understand it once, then you can calculate or solve any problem related to it. Now let's say the person actually understands what goes here, what goes there. That if we add both sides and subtract those both sides and so on. Now even if he doesn't do an example, he would still know what to do in an exam. You know, that's the point. Now, one thing is that if you actually derive the formulas, then it's much easier to remember them. Like, one thing is remembering them, but even if you do not remember them but just derive them, you will still remember them so much better. That's the point. You know, for me, for example, I was just chilling around when I thought, let me do chemistry. In that, there were various formulas and shit, and I thought, let me derive one. Like, we were given a formula, and below it was the derivation. Now, instead of looking at the derivation, I thought, let me derive it myself. Okay, I thought, and then I actually derived it. Now, guess what? Even without learning the formula, even once, even without even trying to do so, I just remember it because I actually learned it. I actually understood why. I actually derived it from the basic principles, right? That's the point. You know, because of this, in the chapter trigonometry, while everyone else was learning formulas and shit, I literally derived all the identities that were there, which of course is no flex because it is really easy. But still, the point is that everyone was learning formulas, but I, out there, derived the identities out of just one identity, and because of that, even now I remember it, even without trying. Like, if you ask me any one identity, if I am just walking down the road and you ask me any identity, there are high chances that I would remember it, even if I did not even try to remember it. I just derived it, I solved one or two examples, and done. And I still remember it. That's the power of derivation. Now, of course, if you cannot derive anything, that's like understandable. Because these things were derived after thousands of years of math, science, and all. That's why it's pretty understandable that you would not be able to derive half of the things. But then, instead of looking at the full solution, let's say you get stuck on step 1. So instead of looking at the full solution, like, alright, let me look at the solution, you rather look at like the next step. Let's say you get stuck on step 1. You understand how step 1 is actually completed. Then you go to step 2 and try to do it yourself. If you cannot do it, then again you go to step 2 in the book and then understand it, how it is done. Then you try to do it by yourself. That's the point, right? Now, if you do it over and over, then slowly your mind will start to make patterns you will actually understand why something is done, how something is done. Then another thing for these deriving formulas and understanding formulas thing is that you would not be able to do them on the first try. Let's say you're reading a chapter for the first try, like for the first time you are reading each line of the chapter. Now, there would be various formulas, and of course, you would not be able to understand half of them, like why is it here, what is it doing, what variables are there, what input is to be there. You would not understand half of the things, right? But that's not a thing to be demotivated about, but rather, you got to understand that if you do not understand it on the first try, then that's obvious. If you learn or if you read, let's say, a sentence on the first try, like let's say you read it for the first time, do you instantly learn it? Do you instantly remember every word, every letter, how it was written? Of course not, right? That's the same thing. If you read a formula for the first time and if you try to understand a formula for the first time, you would not actually remember it 100%. You'll remember maybe half of it, you'll have some vague memories, but if you read it, let's say, second time or third time, then it would slowly become easier and easier for you, and the formulas and things which you could not derive earlier will now be easy for you to derive. You know, the main reason for this is, because books usually do this thing that let's say on the first page or the second page there is a formula. Alright, they have just given a formula, and this is the formula of let's say molarity. Now, you do not even know what moles are and you will be trying to understand them. Now, instead of currently trying to understand the full bit of it, you just take of it as, alright, let's look at it later, and you continue the chapter. Then on the 10th page, it is given what moles actually are. Now, on the second time or the second try, when you do it, will it become easier for you to understand the formula? Of course, because now you have actually understood what moles are. Earlier, you did not know if the chapter had actually explained moles. If you would actually understand them, if you would be able to solve the example or solve the formula. But now you know. Now you actually understand what the inputs are, what the variables are. So you will be able to do it, right? So the second try is usually the one on which you can understand the formulas. And even if you cannot on the second try, you would be 100% able to solve it or able to at least understand it on the third try. Right? That's the 3 session principle in a nutshell. Now, that's the basic point of the video, that do not just remember formulas but try to understand where they came from, what are they derived from. Then, another aspect is to derive the formulas by yourself to learn them. On that case, if you do this, then you will be able to learn them without even trying. You will learn the formulas and you will not even feel like you tried to learn it. You will just derive it and your mind will just make patterns and learn it. And if you understand why, like why did this formula actually occur, then there would be no need for you to learn a particular case. You would not even need to learn it, but you would just understand it. Your mind would make connections that if pressure is down, then the air would be less in that point at that point, and hence the wind would be more. Of course, right? So your mind would be able to make connections, and hence you would not need to remember particular cases, particular formulas. Then the third point is that usually you would not understand the formula on the first try, so you would have to try second time or third time after reading the whole chapter or after reading the whole topic. That's when you'll understand the formula. Now, this was all for the video. If you like the video, then I really think that you should join my program. It's literally $5. Like, how much is $5? Even if you just get lost and you have to, let's say, spend $5 for the bus. Of course, you wouldn't care less. Yes, you would be like, alright, $5, done, and you'll forget. Like, people literally spend hundreds of dollars on McDonald's and all just to poison themselves. So what are $5 that can help you in your studies and to become the best student? Now, one link is for Indian buyers for the UPI, and one link is for Gumroad for international buyers for card payments, right? I highly recommend you to join the program. It literally has a lot of videos about how can make the perfect timetable, how to read specific subjects, how to understand the meanings, how to make timetable for your exams, and there are a lot of things, right? Now, I highly recommend you to join the program. It's literally very cheap and it will highly help you in understanding the subjects and in actually improving. Now, I'll take my leave. I highly recommend you to join the program, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I'll see you later in the next video. Till then, work like a dog, live like a lion.